CNN, NBC, ABC, if every podcaster was talking about Executive Order 14067, I think every American would be up in arms. But the average American is not talking about Executive Order 14067, but we are talking about China circling Taiwan and conducting drills. And I don't know, because I've never met Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what her plan was or what her plan isn't. But I do know, and I want to play this brief little clip here, is I do know, and I want everyone to write this down and assume that I'm making this up, okay? I do know that Joe Biden signed Executive Order 14067 on March 9th, 2022. And after I play this clip, if I've said anything incorrectly, please feel free to interject, General Flynn, on this. But by signing this executive order on March 9th of 2022, Joe Biden has essentially moved America into the Chinese social credit score system by signing a document that nobody's talking about. What I'm seeing here, Dave, is I'm seeing that the Chinese recognized, and General Flynn could speak to this from a military perspective, they recognized that defeating the American people militarily would not be possible. So the best way to defeat us would be to find some very corrupt individuals who they could buy using fiat currency. And so the CCP has been buying the loyalty of Americans willing to sell out their country in exchange or fiat currency. And so now what has happened is now Joe Biden has signed this executive order 14067. This is such a big order that Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that so many of my fellow entrepreneurs often quote, 12 of his last 15 shows have been about this subject. He signs this. It's going into effect on December 13th. And now we understand why 80,000 IRS agents were just hired. Now we understand why they were given weapons. Now we understand why there's this raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago home and why there's this acceleration of corruption. And I just think right now that the CCP, which is in cahoots with Klaus Schwab, and this is not my opinion, Klaus Schwab has done a press conference with the head of China. So they're on video together doing a Zoom presentation together, announcing that this is the year of the tiger and that this is the year they have to add the wings to the dragon. And so Klaus Schwab and the CCP are working right now to implement this great reset. And most people are just simply not talking about Executive Order 14067 because of the theater going on around Taiwan and other distractions is what I would describe them as.
Let me jump on that real quick, if you don't mind, Dave, because I think this is, but I want to take this back to what is China doing in our system, right? Not just electronic warfare, cyber warfare, informational warfare. They are clearly involved in education or in economic warfare. That is part of their unrestricted warfare doctrine, which goes back over 20 years, 25 years, unrestricted warfare. You can look it up online. One of the things I want to take to this executive order, because the mainstream Americans now need to be talking about this executive order 14067. And I want to bring your attention to section 4 of it, because it's very, very important. And if you haven't pulled it up, I'll just read the title of Policy and Actions Related to United States Central Bank Digital Currencies. And then it goes on, and it's very detailed. It's very detailed. It essentially is starting to talk about this shift to a digital currency. You know, and Clay is a master at this in terms of when we created when was the Federal Reserve created? When did certain events happen? And they go back to the early 1970s, and I'll let him touch on that here in a second. But this shift to a digital currency is and actually this executive order, and I try to read the majority of executive orders, if not read them in total, I will certainly scan them to where I get a sufficient understanding of what it's about. This is one of the more frightening executive orders that I've seen in my lifetime. And why? Because the U.S. dollar is the currency of choice around the world and always has been. Mainly in our lifetime, right? I mean, certainly since the late 60s, actually since post World War II, but it really kicked into high gear in the late 60s, 70s, and on up till now. Now we're talking about a shift by this government, by our government, by this White House, to this a form of digital currency. So what does that mean? And I think we have to be very concerned about a fake media that.
Do not buy solar panels if you live in one of these 11 states of America. It's the worst decision you.
It's out there that's going to tout this as something that's great for us, when actually what this is going to do is this is going to align us with this group out of the World Economic Forum. This is going to align us with all of these global institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and it's going to align us with the nation states, communist countries like China. I'll throw it to Clay to just talk a little bit about that, because this is a very frightening time, and there's a date on this. One other last piece, there's a date on this, and I think it's what, Clay, the 13th of December.
December 13th. And Dave, I want to give you credit for this. Your show, X22, was one of the first shows banned from podcasts, banned from YouTube. So great job, Dave. You're
Thank
one
you
of the
very
first
much.
people. Persecution. No, I mean, this is you are legendary for doing this, and I just want people to understand this for a second, okay? So President Trump banned TikTok during his time as president. What did Biden do? One of Biden's first things he did was do what? He decided to drop the ban on TikTok, which is a company that is controlled by China, that put little pieces of code on your phone, which essentially turned your phone into a research device. I mean, nobody, for the CCP, nobody would say, yeah, let's put a microphone in my house so the CCP can spy on me. Yeah, let's put a chip in my phone so the CCP can see what I type and what I search. Well, that's what you do when you download the TikTok app. So Biden said, yeah, let's go ahead and bring that back. Then Trump signed a ban. He's banning Huawei, the telecom equipment manufacturer. Trump banned that. And it appears as though the Biden administration is friendly with that. So you're seeing this infiltration. If we just get into a little history here, you say, well, what is money? Well, money is a medium of exchange. So up until 1971, America had this thing called the gold standard. And then a guy by the name of Henry Kissinger whispered in the ear of Richard Nixon and said, hey, you should get off the gold standard. And so guess what Richard Nixon did in 1971? He got us off the gold standard. Well, in 1971, Henry Kissinger, who was a professor at Harvard, for Klaus Schwab, who was born in 1938, who had parents that were oddly close to Adolf Hitler. Klaus Schwab's parents managed a factory that was praised by Adolf Hitler. So Klaus Schwab, Henry Kissinger whispers in his ear and says, hey, you should start the World Economic Forum. So he starts at 1971. In 1971, check this out. Rules for Radicals was written and dedicated to Lucifer. This is how the book starts. It's how it starts. It says,